Launching and running a business isn't easy. I've been there and I get it. With the right guidance, you can avoid common pitfalls and build something incredible. I'm Amy Davies, a 3-time business owner, and I'm your new business big sister. Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I cannot tell you how happy I am to have one of the most amazing women I know, Amy Sweezy, joining me on the podcast today. Amy, you and I met quite a few years ago in the beautiful Florida area.
Yes.
And we were both part of a panel. We're talking about your book. I was talking about my book, which hadn't even been written yet. It hadn't been written, but I hadn't named it. I hadn't published it yet. And you were just fantastic on that panel. I learned so much from you. And we became fast friends, didn't we? We've known each other now for, I can't even count. It was pre-COVID, so it was quite a while now.
2018 or 2017, maybe?
Yes. Yeah. And we have someone who knows you. So I know some other people in Florida, and I'm always like, do you know Amy Sweezy, the, amazing meteorologist? And they're like, yes, I do. So I feel like I've got a celebrity on the show today. And you did an amazing TED Talk, which I have just rewatched and loved as much the second time as I did the first. And stay tuned. I'm going to go off camera for a second. And 1 and 2.
Yay. My children's books.
Yes. So you've got these children's books. Now remind me, are you writing another book, or do you have a third book out already?
I am writing another book right now. This one is nonfiction. It's for adults. And I wouldn't really say it's a biography so much. I'm still trying to figure out what genre it is, but it is stories about my life as a meteorologist, making my way up through the television career that I had. And then it also just kind of applies some of the things that I've learned over the years to life lessons that hopefully will help others who are reading the book.
Well, I'm going to add it to my collection. And for those who are listening, I realized I only held up your books. It Never Ever Snows in Florida was the first one. And the second is Let's Talk Weather, TV forecasting behind the scenes. So these were both excellent books, which my children adored. So I had to sneak into their rooms this morning. One was in one room, one's the other, and steal them out to make sure that I had them for today. So thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about reinvention. Amy has a podcast. So Amy, can you share a little bit more about your podcast? Because I was lucky enough to be one of your guests as well.
Yes. So it's called Reinvention at Any Age. And it was a spinoff from the TEDx talk that I did in 2024. And what happened was I originally went to college to be a journalist and write for a newspaper. And long story short, I ended up transitioning and pivoting into a career in weather instead of news. And that was sort of my first reinvention that I didn't even really know at the time. And then I went on to have this 30-year career in full-time television broadcast meteorology at various stations throughout the U.S. and ended up in 2020 leaving that job, pivoting into yet another new career and having to reinvent myself a second time. And I really did end up applying a lot of the lessons from that early reinvention to my later reinvention that I didn't even realize was going to happen.
And I talked about this previously, I just love what you say, that it's possible at any age to reinvent yourself, because I know I'm hearing from some of our listeners now, and there are people from all ages who are thinking about starting a business. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you here is part of starting a business and going maybe from a more, like I did, from a corporate job, as you did from a broadcasting role. Those are more kind of, broadcasting certainly isn't necessarily traditional. I'd say a lot more people are in corporate, but it requires work, both psychologically and from a marketing perspective, to put the new you out there. And there's going to obviously be a lot of pieces of the you that was, from before, but you're trying to become something else. And maybe it's harder with age. Maybe it's easier. I mean, I didn't find it terribly, I worked hard to do it, but I didn't find it terribly difficult. But I'd love to hear from you. What was your journey? And I'd love to talk more about just the concept of reinvention and reinventing yourself as an entrepreneur, for our listeners, so they can maybe take some advice about what steps they should be taking. So first, you talked a little bit about your background, but what kind of, like, you talked in your TED Talk, which I loved, about how you became a not just a news reporter, but an actual weather reporter. And forgive me if I've got my language wrong about the titles.
It's okay.
You're a meteorologist. I
Just
know
don't
that.
call me a weather girl and we're good.
I won't. So tell us about your sort of journey to that point.
I started off, again, going to college to be a journalist. I wanted to write for a newspaper. And it wasn't until my senior year in college that I realized, or that I actually took a class and we toured a TV station. And I thought, oh, wow, maybe being a news reporter on TV would be more fun than having, write for a newspaper job and be a journalist. And I thought it sounded really fun until I started looking for work. And I tried to get a job in TV after college graduation for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Could not get a job. Traveled all over the country, went to interview after interview, and every potential boss told me, you look too young, you sound too young, you need to cut your hair, you'll never make it in TV, you just need to find a job behind the scenes. And so then I started questioning everything and thinking, well, maybe I should be a newspaper reporter. But at the same time, I just, deep in my soul, I just really wanted to pursue this and I wanted to make it happen. So I persisted, and finally persistence paid off. And 2 years later, I finally got that first TV job, but it was to do weekend weather at a TV station. And I didn't know anything about weather, but of course I wasn't going to tell them that. So I'm like, of course, I would love to have a weather job, because I really saw that as an opportunity just to get my foot in the door. And I can take this job and then I can use it as a stepping stone, and then I can get that news job that I really want. But in the process of that happening, I discovered a couple of things. Number one, I really liked the weather. The meteorologist I was working with was so fun and engaging and just taught me that weather was always changing. It wasn't the same old boring thing. And I also started realizing how negative the news cycle is, which of course you kind of always know, but the more you're in it, the more you're like, ugh, I don't know if I want to do this. And so over the course of a couple of months, he finally convinced me to go back to school and get my training in meteorology. So I made that pivot from news to weather and never looked back. I ended up getting a job after I had my schooling finished. I got a job at another TV station in Michigan doing the weather, and then I ended up moving to Orlando, Florida in 2002, and I stayed at the NBC TV station in Orlando for 18 years before I finally decided to leave.
Wow. So part of your reinvention was that you re-educated yourself, or skilled up really your education, which is something, in life, I'm seeing this a lot. You see it online all the time. It's like sometimes you feel like people want the easy path all the time. And I do think that when you become the perception of you, and I'm sure this is the case for you and for me, is that we're successful entrepreneurs, right? And sometimes people think they can just snap their fingers and make it happen.
Yes.
And it's simply not that easy. So I love that you share that you went back to school to become a meteorologist, to reinvent yourself and become what you wanted to be for the next 30 years, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure it gained you a lot of credibility too.
Well, and being in Orlando, obviously we're the home of Walt Disney World. And so I like to use the story about the Disney princesses. And we're all raised on these stories about, oh, your dreams come true, want a wish and a prayer. Sometimes it's when someone else comes along, like say a Prince Charming, or sometimes it's just because I dreamed it and I wished it and I hoped it. And what the reality is your dreams don't come true unless you do the work. And
Right.
whatever the work is for you, it might be going back to school. That's what it was for me at the beginning. And then when I did my second reinvention and I left my full-time job, I didn't necessarily have to go back to college, although I could have. Some people choose to do that, but I still had to do the work. I had to put in the time and the hours, and I continue to put in the time and the hours even now, because now that I'm my own boss, it is much more difficult than working for someone else.
And you do, how do I say this? You are the type of person who's all in. Like, I see you all in as a professional. I see you all in as a family person. And you're all in as a friend too. I mean, I know that we don't get to spend a lot of time together, but you're often just send me a note out of the blue to highlight something that you've noticed I've done. You remember people. You remember me when you were, you're all in on those things. And that's, I do think, the level of dedication it takes to be so good at all of these things that you've done so well. And I remember you talking about how you wrote the book, the first book, when we met. It Never Ever Snows in Florida. You talked about what you did and how you found someone to do the illustrations for the book. I still remember that conversation. And you didn't do anything halfway. And I really want people to hold on to that notion when they're thinking about building their business. I make the joke that I'm a perfectionist, and it's funny to say, but it's not very funny to live.
Right? I'm right there with you.
Yeah. And I do think a lot of really great entrepreneurs are perfectionists because the quality of our effort shines through in our work. Yeah.
I wasn't all in right from the start. Some people jump off a cliff and that's how they work, and they force themselves to, do something new or do this reinvention. I'm a planner. I cannot jump off a cliff. I also recognize how fortunate I was to be able to choose my reinvention. I was able to choose to leave my job. Some people, which your book is all about, is they're furloughed or they're fired or they're reorganized and suddenly they find themselves having to reinvent themselves instead of getting to choose it. So I recognize that is a beautiful thing that I was able to do. But also, I think in the TV world especially, from the very beginning, I knew that there was a shelf life for women on TV. It was unspoken and sometimes spoken right out loud in front of you. But I saw, even when I was young in my 20s and 30s, I saw the women who were getting into their 50s or at that point, maybe even into their 40s. And they weren't necessarily fired, but they were just sort of demoted or put on a terrible shift or moved to mornings or moved to weekends, or their life just kind of became more miserable so that they would have to leave and they sort of were
That's
pushed
so
out.
terrible. Yeah.
And so I think coming up through that career, it always was a mental note to me, what I need to have a plan B, because this job may not be here forever for me. And I think that was a benefit to me. It also helped me to think through that I wanted to leave on my own terms if I could and not be the one who was fired or pushed out. So a lot of people question, why did you leave at, really what was the peak of your career? And I could have probably pushed comfortably to retirement, especially as a meteorologist. But maybe not. Who knows? Because there really aren't a lot of 60-year-old female meteorologists on TV, chief meteorologists. There's not a lot of 60-year-old female news anchors. There's lots of men, but there's not a lot of women. And so I think that was part of my, knowing sort of in the back of my mind that I can't just jump off a cliff. I need to have a plan, and I need to start thinking through, what can I do? What are my options? And what work do I need to do to end up with the job that I really want when I leave this full-time career?
And kind of leading to my next question, because you have moved in to become a speaker as well. And speaking, I'm sure if people listening to this are like, I want to become a professional paid speaker. And they're also wondering, like, how do I do that? Or maybe they've spoken at a few events, maybe they haven't been paid. Often you'll speak at events. When I was in corporate, I spoke at events all the time. It was part of my job in the company. But tell us a little more about moving into a speaking career, and has it been hard? Has it been easy? You're already, to me, you're already famous, but
Just in my own mind, yeah. Just in Orlando.
And in mine, in mine.
Yeah, the speaking thing, right, because part of my job as a meteorologist was I would MC events. I would speak at Chamber of Commerce lunches. I would share my story at a charity event, and it was all unpaid because
Yes.
it was part of my community outreach from the TV station. And the TV station sometimes required or sometimes just strongly encouraged us to be involved in the community. And I recognize the benefit of that, of course, too. I spoke at a lot of schools to children's groups who were studying weather, and that's, of course, how my 2 children's weather books came about in the first place. So I've got the speaking experience, and of course, I spoke on television as well and on the radio. But the transition from speaking for free versus trying to get paid, very, very difficult. Because the people who you've spoken to their group in the past for free, they still expect that. And then when you try to say, "Hey, I wanna get paid now," it's an awkward conversation. It can be an awkward conversation. It is something that I'm still working on and I'm still practicing. There are places, people who will say you need to join a speakers bureau or, some
That's what I was
organization,
going
but
to ask you.
a lot of those are so expensive, as I'm sure you know. There's a membership
Mhm.
fee or a workshop fee, and it can be hundreds or thousands of dollars. And when you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to just earn enough money to help with your family budget, it's difficult to find that extra money to try to, find an agent or a speakers bureau or something. So at this point, I've just been doing it on my own through my own contacts and sending out information and, my updating my website and getting all of my promotional materials together and all of those things. But at some point, as I'm still learning, and this is a learning curve for me as an entrepreneur, I'm going to have to probably do something more.
And one thing that I would give any entrepreneur advice about is if you are a speaker, to have something to sell with the talk, whether it's a book, whether it's a service, because then you've got something to back up that career as well. And you've got an upsell every time you're talking, right? You've got
Right.
something that people can buy. And if you're speaking at a conference and you have a book, the conference organizers might buy, hundreds of copies of your book for their delegates as well. So you're making the money speaking, and then you're also making it by selling your book, or in First 30's case, well, I have a book, but in First 30's case, we also have a service. So there's things that people can buy, and our brand awareness benefits from that. So it's very good advice for people. So thank you, who are thinking of moving in that direction in their career.
Well, and that is a good point, actually, that I should mention. When you are first getting started, and if you want to be a speaker and you don't have a book, you should speak at unpaid events, I think, just to get your reps in, just to get some practice, see what works, see what the audience laughs at and what they respond to and what they don't. I think doing those luncheons when you're first starting out as a speaker is brilliant practice. And they are always looking for speakers. And then if you do have a book, but you're not quite up to snuff with your speaking skills yet, then ask them, "Hey, if I speak for free, can I then at least just sell my book afterwards?" And so then you've kind of got a win-win there as well, until you're ready to get paid for speaking. But I already had that 30 years of speaking experience, so I felt like I was kind of starting off a little bit differently, a little bit of an advantage of what most people would do.
And now, a word about our production partner.
Like many entrepreneurs, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. So when I started Your New Business Big Sister podcast, I knew that I had to work with a fantastic production company, and I chose Storyfora. And here's why. They make everything sound and look amazing, and I'm so happy working with them. They do all kinds of great content, video and otherwise. So if you're looking to up your game as an entrepreneur, check out Storyfora. That's www.storyfora.com. And if you want to get in touch with them, email info@storyfora.com, and your podcast can look as good as mine.
And now back to the show.
Say people who are listening are going through this process of reinventing themselves. Maybe they're on the other side of a reinvention that happened quite recently. how do we know, what are some of the signs that it's working? Like, okay, I've done this and I've made this happen for myself.
That is a great question. I think the answer is going to be different for each person because we all have our own definitions of success and what's working and what's not working. For me, I knew that I needed to bring in a certain amount of income for my family budget. Now, for some people, that may mean you need to replace your previous income. For some people, maybe you don't because you have a spouse or someone else who's helping with with the family budget. But for my husband and I specifically, we had to sit down and say, okay, if I don't have this money, but you have this money, and we come together here with this, how much do I need to make? And so for me, that measure of success came down to paying the bills, right? I mean, it seems silly, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to make lots and lots of money unless that's your goal. But I think that certainly the money is one measure, whatever that definition is for you. Again, the answer depends on what your new reinvention is. For me, the fact that I still have jobs coming in or clients seeking me out or clients that are interested in my services, that's a measure of success for me as well. If I was kicking back and saying, okay, I'm going to be a speaker, and then, crickets. Nobody's calling me. Nobody's answering my, emails. Nobody wants me as a speaker. I might need to rethink. Not necessarily my goal as a speaker, but I might need to rethink, okay, do I need to practice more? Do I not have the right promotional video on my website? Do I not have a book yet? Do I not have a podcast? Do I need to be working on some of these other things in order to reach my definition of success, that I am now a successful speaker?
Right. Okay. So I also think that people sometimes feel like success should come to them.
Yes.
And I wish I had that confidence, Amy.
Yes.
But I think this discussion is a great reminder of how hard you are working every single day. And as an entrepreneur, the other thing that is really helpful when you are going through a reinvention, when you've reinvented yourself to become your own boss, let's say, you have to you talked about being a planner. I'm not as much of a planner as you are, but I think it's very wise for people who are. It probably serves you very well. But there has to be some plan. You have to set goals for yourself. You have to set deadlines for yourself because you're going into a space you're unmanaged. So unless you're prepared to manage yourself and hold yourself accountable, then you're going to have some real problems adjusting to and being successful in any measure, I would say. And how do you even know if you've been successful because you've not got any measure? You've not got a unless the money is literally pouring in, which is
right.
Yeah, hard to tell.
And I do so much work every day that I don't get paid for because I see it as eventually it will pay off, right? I make all these social media posts. I don't get paid for those. I am recording my podcast. Hopefully someday I'll get advertisers and, it will become a money-making business for me, but you have to get there first. My book, I'm writing it. I spend time working on my book and finishing up my chapters. I just got it back from an editor, the one that I'm working on now, and it's a lot of work. I have to put in a lot of hours before it's ready to be published and before I can potentially even start making an income from it. So just know that if you're working towards something, it's not necessarily, oh, well, if I'm not making money, that means it's not successful. It just means that part of what you do needs to be helping to pay your bills. And then the other part of what you do needs to be working toward what's your ultimate goal that will hopefully help you pay your bills.
Yeah, that is I'm so glad you said that because you articulated it so well that there's so much work that is unpaid. It doesn't mean you're doing the wrong work.
Yes.
It just means that's contributing to your overall goal because right. I do a ton mostly on LinkedIn and I'm not getting paid to write those posts.
Right.
I love doing it though. I have to tell you, I love writing like you. So it
And
is
when I
kind of,
worked at the TV station, posting on social media was required at
oh,
various bosses, and when it came about, and they would require 3 posts per shift or 5
wow.
posts per day, or it had to be a video, it had to be a picture. Like there were all these requirements, and so it kind of just became part of my job. But since I was doing it on the clock, they were paying me to do it. Now that I'm an
Yeah.
entrepreneur and I'm my own boss, I'm putting in all this extra time as well, continuing to post on social media, but nobody's paying me for it. So I have to recognize that, okay, this is going to pay off because this will get more eyeballs to my book or to my speaking business or to whatever it is that I'm trying to do in my own business.
So I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Number 1, is there anything we missed? But before you think about your answer to that question,
Uh-oh.
I want you to think about on your new business, Big Sister, we kind of have a little bonus. Like, what is your Big Sister bonus? Like that tough piece of advice that you might give to a younger sibling that you really care about if they were going through a reinvention, if they were starting something new, that will help them, but it might not be the easiest piece of advice to hear.
I think it's something, it would be what we've already both, I think, mentioned in this podcast, and that is you have to do the work. If you want to be successful, you can't just have a dream. Remember those dream boards that were so popular? I don't know if people still do them, but you'd make a poster and you'd hang it on your bathroom mirror and think about, oh, this is my goal when I quit my job someday, or this is the vacation I want to go on. And it was just sort of this big dream that we had. But if you just sit there and look at it and dream about it, it's going to just stay a dream. You have to put some dates on it and some deadlines and some action steps and the work. You have to put the work behind it, put it on your to-do list, and actually make some progress. And if you do all of those things in between, now suddenly that dream up on that poster board can become your reality.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Amy, because I was never the type of person to build like that vision board, what you're talking about, I think. And this year was the first time I did it, and I'll tell you why I did it. I did it because I was reading a great book called The 12-Week Year, which if anyone listening, I think on top of Amy's books, you should also get this book because it didn't just get you to put together your vision board. It recommends you plan your goals in 12-week. You might have heard of it before. In 12, the concept, there's good advice in the book too. But
Yes.
I put together my entire plan. I've been holding myself accountable, and every so often I look at that vision board. It's on a PowerPoint slide because that's where I'm comfortable living. But I look at it every so often. Just it's an inspiration and a reminder. But I have something concrete, as you said, to tie it back to, which are the goals, the deadlines, all of those things. And I'm just coming to the end of my first 12 weeks of this year, and I am like so close to getting everything done, and I'm very proud of myself, and it has changed my outcome in my business at this stage. So I love what you said. Don't just create a vision board and expect the universe. That's what I think people are expecting. The universe is going to give it to you because you put this vision board out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's great to build a vision board, but you need to have the goals, the deadlines, the accountability attached to all of that. And do be hard on yourself, right?
Yes. Yes. I think when we're our own boss, it's easier to say, oh, it's work from home day. Maybe I'll just, kick back and watch some movies.
Yeah, I know it is
Or
easy to do that.
because I'm a worker, I don't like to just sit and watch movies all day. My distraction is, I'll do some laundry. I'll do the dishes. I'll sweep. I'll work on this project. I'll clean out my closet. Even though I know that I need to be working on this chapter of my book or setting up this visit or working on this PowerPoint for this next presentation or whatever it may be.
So if I get to come to your house, I'm going to look around, and if I'm going to judge how hard you've been working on your business based on how messy or orderly your house is.
Now I have an excuse for a messy, dirty house. Yes, that's great.
Well, Amy, I'm so glad you came on today and shared your insights with us. Can you remind everyone about, well, we know about your books, but we want to know, what is the name of your podcast and how can people find it?
Absolutely. So the podcast is Reinvention at Any Age with Amy Sweezy. And it is wherever podcasts are found on, audio places, and then also the video version on YouTube. And my website, amysweezy.com, which is simple since it's just my name, has all the information. You'll find information about not only my podcast, but my speaking, my television work, the other conventions and conferences and things that I do. And then, of course, information about my books. Did I mention that already? Go see information about my books.
Well, your books are amazing, and you worked really hard to get them out there. So it's such a nice thing to have, like, something you can hold in your hand and say, I did this, because even though some of our speaking is recorded, it's all like electronic. It's not really in our hands. It's always nice to have something that you can hold on to, right?
Yes, yes. And in fact, I'm one of those weird people that, like, so far I have not put my children's books on ebook because I want the kids to have the book to hold in their hand. So I have to decide. I know everybody says if you have a book, a nonfiction book for adults, you should really have the ebook version so they could read it on their Kindle or their tablet. But I don't know. I'm still old school. I'm still out. Jury's out on that one.
Well, also tell us where people can find you. So obviously they can find you on your website, and I'm sure there's contact information there.
Yes.
In case someone's listening and they're like, oh, I do need a speaker for an event.
Wonderful.
But also you're on Instagram. Is there any other social media?
Yes.
So I'm going to sound so old, but any other social media places people come on?
I got you.
Platforms,
They're
any
all
social media?
They're all on the top of my website. So if you go to amysweezy.com, you'll find them all. But I'm my name everywhere. I know some people are different things in different places, but it's just Amy Sweezy everywhere. Thankfully, there aren't too many Amy Sweezys spelled my way in the world, so that helps. But Facebook, Twitter, which is now X, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube. What did I forget? I'm not really on TikTok. I just spy on my
You're on
feed
LinkedIn,
there.
but that's just
yes,
your
LinkedIn.
name.
That is, yes. And I'm one of the people who does, I love LinkedIn. And you were so beneficial to me giving me advice about LinkedIn and getting more involved with LinkedIn back in the day. So I appreciate that because I use it very much now.
Yeah.
And what else? Oh, you know what else I want to mention? When you go to my YouTube channel, it's just Amy Sweezy, but I have different playlists. So the podcast is just a playlist. So you won't find Reinvention at Any Age unless you go to Amy Sweezy and then look for that playlist. But I also have another playlist on there that's called Successful Introverts. And I am actually, despite the fact that I talk a lot for my job and I work in an extroverted job, I am a 100% introvert. And so I have created this space with some videos and advice and help about things that I have learned over the years navigating in an extroverted world and how to make sure that you give yourself time to recharge your batteries when you're just so exhausted as an introvert if you speak for a living.
And it's a good place for extroverts to go too, because they can learn more about, I'm an extrovert, no surprise, I'm sure, but I can go there and I love to learn more about people that aren't like me, so I know how to set others up for success too. So
yes, and so often we work with introverts or extroverts, and so or have them in our families. Opposites attract, So it's always a great idea to know how the other side works.
Absolutely, it is. Well, thank you very much, Amy. So look out for Amy. Look out for her podcast, and you can reach out to me LinkedIn. I'm New Biz Big Sis pretty much everywhere, so you can find me there too. But Amy, thanks again so much for joining. I hope that I get to come visit you in Florida one of these days again. And I wish you all the best with your business. And I'm sure you're just going to keep doing great things.
Thank you so much. I am so glad that the universe brought us together all those years ago, my fellow Amy in Canada. And we're going to get to Toronto and visit you one of these days too.
But
it's going to be in the summer. It will not be in the winter. Let me just preface that. I am not a fan of the cold, so no snow for me.
Okay, well, you know that we only have 2 seasons in Canada.
We'll be there in July.
Too hot and too cold. So, okay, I'll talk to you later, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you. Thank you so much.